Já, já, já. Úp, úp, úp. Lalala. Góðan daginn og verið velkomin í Hin Reykjavík. Þáttinn þar sem við tölum við fólk og málefni sem að birtast ekki oft í meginströms fjölmiðlum. Hjá mér í dag það er Andie Sophia Fontaine, news editor,
Fréttastjóri.
Ekki að segja það íslensku. Fréttastjóri hjá Reykjavík Grapevine. Nicola van Kuilenburg,
Já.
sem er nýfluttur í Íslands og er að læra íslensku og hefur starfað fyrir verkefnisfélög í Bandaríkjunum. Og hún Laufey Ólafsdóttir sem er mjög reglulega hérna, miklu oftar heldur en allir aðrir sennilega. Og ég er sjálfur Danni. Þátturinn í dag verður á ensku, þar sem að ekki allir í þættinum tala íslensku. Og hérna við bara skiptum yfir. Hi and welcome.
Hello.
I wanted to start to talk to Nicola. You just moved here from the US and you started learning Icelandic. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I did just move here. I moved about 6 weeks ago from the United States. I used to live a little bit north of DC.
Hi, you gotta talk to it?
Oh, and I moved here with the intention of staying in Iceland and learning Icelandic and hopefully getting a job here. I've only been here 6 weeks, but it's been very interesting. I spent 3 weeks in Ísafjörður at the University Center of the West Fjords. They offer intensive Icelandic class, which was not super expensive, but it was very telling that all the people that attended the class all came from pretty wealthy backgrounds. Everybody had a higher education already, or their companies paid for it. Everybody except one person was white, which I found interesting. So I returned to Reykjavík a couple of weeks ago, and I am going to continue my studies through Mimir. But it's a roller coaster learning Icelandic because it's a challenge because everybody speaks English. Particularly in Reykjavík, I noticed a huge difference. It's very difficult to try to speak Icelandic here without people correcting you or interrupting and continuing the conversation in English. I didn't notice that as much in the countryside when I traveled before around Iceland. It seems like a lot of people outside Reykjavík welcome language learners, and they're willing to help you try to formulate something in Icelandic, whereas in Reykjavík, that to this point has not been my experience. So it's very interesting. I learned to speak Dutch fluently. I speak French. I speak English, of course, because I was born in England, but I've never lived anywhere where it has been so difficult to practice the language that I'm learning. I don't know if you relate to that at all, Andie, if that was your experience when you learned Icelandic.
Yeah, it was very similar. For me, the most difficult part of learning Icelandic by far was convincing Icelanders to speak Icelandic with me when I spoke Icelandic to them. I've been here over 20 years, and it's still something that happens to me when I speak Icelandic, is people hear that accent, and I don't presume to be in the minds of other people, but I can kind of see the wheels turning when they hear my accent. They're like, oh, okay, this is a foreigner. I'm just going to speak English. It'll be easier for all of us. But whatever the intent, it does make it difficult to learn the language in this way when everyone answers you in English.
Yes.
And it's also a bit othering. It's like, here we are making the effort to learn a language that's not known for being easy. And, when you're dismissed in this way, it's a little disheartening. Why even bother. So.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I think it made me think, or it made me consider Icelandic as not accessible. Like I haven't quite formulated my thoughts about it completely yet, but it's sometimes like I'm trying to learn something, right? And I get closer and then it's snatched out of my hands because where it's difficult to get to practice what we want to do. And I don't want to come across as being like whiny about it or like, you know, this is the worst thing that's happening in the world right now. But it is remarkable. It's remarkable that because the grammar, I think as a native English speaker, the grammar for me, learning just even the concept of an article, right? And what that happens at the end of the word, and then all the cases, and that needs a lot of practice. I'm confident, practice, but it's very difficult when people remind you every time that what you're trying to do is very difficult. I don't know if that makes any sense. It is disheartening. I think that's the perfect word, Andie. It's very disheartening. And not what you need, right, when you're learning another language.
I mean, I have caught myself doing this many times, I have to admit. Just switching, just not thinking about it at all, just switching into English because it's easier to understand for me.
Yeah.
Not for the other person. It's just I'm just thinking about my ass or not thinking. So yeah, I apologize for this, and I will try to do better. But
don't start speaking Icelandic 100% though with me. Let's be clear. I can't. My Icelandic is not that good, so I will be lost.
I'll give you a few weeks.
Okay.
Andie, I wanted to come to you now about. I saw a post from you on Facebook today, which prompted me to contact you, where Jónína Ben was. I don't know. I read her article and I don't really know what was going on there. You had some input on it. What did you think about this? This, I don't know what to call it, a Facebook post.
The thing that's really interested me about this story is, just for a little background, she had shown up at a bakery and the cashier spoke to her with an accent. And so as she wrote in her Facebook post, and so I did as I always do and asked, "Are you Polish?" And now the thing is that she went on to say that, you know, the cashier reacted like very defensively and went into the back, and she speculated that the cashier was ashamed to be Polish. And she concluded on this note that, you know, we should be more tolerant of foreigners and such. What Jónína Ben is, I suppose, not aware of is that when somebody speaks to you, like just speaking from my own personal experience, when I speak to somebody in Icelandic and the very first question that they ask is, "What country are you from?" or "Are you Polish?" It's like being told what matters most to me is not your name, not who you are, not what you do in Iceland, not how long you've been here, but your nationality. Because I want to know what set of stereotypes to reach for and apply to you, since this is the very first draw of attention that's being made. I mean, I understand that people have a natural curiosity when they hear an accent, and that's fine and all. I just wouldn't lead with that question necessarily. Like, it's really othering, and I think that the reason why this person went in the back is because, as we know, Poles are the largest ethnic minority in Iceland, and the discourse, shall we say, in social media and elsewhere has not always been positive towards them. And this, you know, those of you who we've seen this many, many times. Like when I came here in the beginning of the 21st century, it was all this talk about Thais, and then after that it was Lithuanians, and then after that it was Poles. Like, it's the exact same sort of prejudiced talk, but just the nationalities change with each wave of immigrants that come in. So, like, yeah, I'm from the United States, I'm from Baltimore, but that's not all that I am, and I don't want to, because the moment someone asks me, like, where are you from? I say, I'm from Baltimore. Then, you know, there'll be a slew of talk about The Wire or homicide life on the street. You know. It must be a really dangerous town. Like, wow, there's a lot of, and yeah, I've talked openly about those things, but like, I really would prefer that people would like maybe not open with talking about my nationality, because that, when you do that, it shows like what you value, like what you consider an important part of a person's identity, of a stranger that you just get to know. And I'm aware of the fact, because I've had this explained to me many, many times by Icelanders, that like they do this with each other, you know, like when you meet another Icelander and they, you know, find out what region they're from or what town they're from, like Hvernig, and all that.
Yeah.
Like wanting to see if they've got any possible like 5th or 6th cousins in common. Like, I understand that that's a cultural thing, you know, and that's fantastic, you know. I'm not saying that this is like a huge crime that Yoni had been committed. She was clearly coming from a place of good intentions. I'm just asking that people be a little bit more aware and maybe not open with questions about nationality. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to add that she ends her Facebook post by saying, we can love all people no matter where they come from, even Chinese. Which is kind of striking to me. And she says, my dream is that most people have it, líði vel, have it good, but I'm probably just naive. Yes, so this whole reads like such a Laufey, my friend, said on who's with us, said on Messenger, what did you say, Laufey? Which I thought summed it up really good. It was like
yeah, it's
well-meaning, enthusiastic white lady syndrome.
Yes.
It's
I'd vote for
such
Obama 3 times if I could.
Sorry?
I'd vote for Obama 3 times if I could. Like that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Because like from my experience, I mean, I lived in London like through the 90s, and obviously I'm like from Iceland originally and grew up here. Then I moved to London, lived there through the 90s, and then came back, I think in 99, end of 99. So, like I have biracial children also, and they are often othered by people talking to them in English when they first see them, because they don't look like they speak Icelandic. And this is like another facet of, you know, the othering process, you know, connected to language.
Yeah.
And for me, I mean, I think also with the thing, I mean, Icelanders are just, it's kind of imprinted in their heads that if someone is a person of color, they will not understand Icelandic. It's like subconscious thing that they will just automatically speak English.
Mm-hmm.
That happened on the bus today. The bus driver insisted on speaking English to this guy, and the guy answered him in Icelandic. And it was a really interesting exchange, because I didn't understand enough Icelandic to figure out what the guy said to him. But I think he said to him, you assumed that I didn't speak Icelandic.
Yeah.
And he was pissed, rightly so.
Yeah. And this is something also that that like people of color who live here, some are born here, others, you know, are immigrants, but that doesn't matter. But this is what they struggle with, is that people assume, and very often, I mean, Sanna has talked about this also, our co-host here, that people often, like, even if she replies in Icelandic, they will continue speaking English. This is very frustrating. So
And the really typical, but where are you from? I'm from Breiðholt, but
yeah.
where are you from?
Yeah,
You were just talking about
why are you brown is really the question. And this is what this, I mean, there is a difference obviously with the traditional thing that Andie was referring to, that we Icelanders do, like hverra manna ertu. It is, yeah, there is a difference, and we know the undertone. Sorry, Andie, you wanted to...
Also because that's, can I say something? Sorry, hverra manna ertu is also just who are your people? You know, who's your family? It's not like where, from what physical location are you from?
Yeah, and they don't insist, when you give them an answer, they don't insist like, no, where are you from? You know, it's that kind of othering. But I mean, my problem with Jónína's post was also she used the term stúlka for that young woman. I am pretty sure this was not a child she was talking to.
Yeah.
Just the tone of the conversation.
Very
like,
infantile.
and also, yeah. And so there's a lot there. And also, I mean, just because the woman felt uncomfortable when asked if she was Polish, doesn't necessarily mean she was ashamed. It's just that she's at her job, just, you know, trying to sell some bread, you know, and it's not really. So, yeah, but maybe you guys can contribute to that, like getting that question in a setting where you are not really required to answer such questions.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I have to go right now. Like right now.
Yeah, sorry.
So, but thank you for having me. It was a real pleasure to be here. And
yeah, it was really good to have you.
I hope that I can come back again soon for a longer period of time. And it was really great seeing you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much. We will carry on with Nicola.
Great. Bye for now.
Okay.
Bye. I think it's definitely worth mentioning that we talked a little bit about this before this recording, about the concept, right, of privilege, and how moving from the US right now, because I can, I'm queer. Before I moved here, I worked for the American Federation of Unions. I was the program manager for the Queer Workers Program. And, you know, the last few months have been filled with, you know, COVID-related stories, the increase of fascism in the US, etc. And, you know, the fact that I could leave all that and move to Iceland right now is because I happen to have been born in the United Kingdom. And the passport that comes with that gives me the privilege of being able to move to Iceland before Brexit. The transition period is over at the end of the year. So I know my experience as an immigrant is very different than a lot of, you know, the bulk of experiences that I'm already aware. I was talking to Daniel about this last week. I'm already aware of the almost level, right, of as an EU citizen, sort of, I'm considered top tier immigrant. My passport is, you know, kind of a golden ticket. It brings with it a lot of rights. You know, I've already had people say to me when I've asked them about finding work, very well-meaning, liberal white people have said to me, well, you know, it'll be easier for you to find work because you're not Polish or you're not Romanian. You know, at least you're not Polish, you know. And we were talking about that last week, weren't we, Daniel? Like how, even though I've only been here for a short period of time, that sentiment is pretty widespread in Iceland, I've noticed. And it's very, very dangerous. And it comes back to this idea of othering. You know, at least my first language is English, right? I've had people say that to me. Thank goodness, you know, that you're not trying to learn English and Icelandic. And I just wanted to say that's also part of this discussion, how my country of birth and my education and everything affords me a level of privilege that I have to recognize, you know, like we have to mention that, because my experience is not the experience of a lot of immigrants. Yes, sadly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yes, this is especially now with people getting laid off in droves. You can really see this, both the distinction between how Icelandic people and immigrants are treated in general. I mean, you can see that the unemployment numbers for immigrants, it matters where you're from as an immigrant,
Right.
which you were saying. It's shameful.
It is.
I am breaking up. Sorry, internet connection.
I just wanted to also ask you about the access to learning Icelandic. Nicola, maybe you know something about.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I came back from a 3-week class that was run by the University Center of the Westfjords. There were some really great people there, but it was not, I would argue it was not accessible for the majority of working people. Most people who took that class either were coming to be doctors here or graduate students. A lot of people had it paid for by their employer. I will pay for my own classes. In a couple of weeks, they'll start again here. So there are classes for people to take here, but the cost of them, I understand that some unions do pay for some of these classes, which is really, really good. But some people, I guess, you have to have a job to be in a union, right? So, like, that's like for me, I have to pay the full price. I don't get any financial assistance, and I know that there are other people that won't get that assistance. I was encouraged to see that some of the classes run in the evening. You know, there are some weekend classes, but there are not that many of them. Some that I tried to sign up for were already full. So thankfully, I am flexible, so I was able to get into class. But it made me wonder, like, if you find a job, if you're lucky to find a job right now, then language classes are going to be, you know, they're quite expensive. For a month, would it be 45,000? Yes. So it's about $300 a month,
Yes.
which is not accessible to everyone, right? That's a big amount of money. Like,
Yeah.
I budgeted for that myself. And I knew that I would have to spend that and I would have to invest that money. But I can understand that, you know, if you are here and you make a minimum wage job, then those classes, unless your union pays for you, are not accessible. And there are waiting lists, I learned as well, for some classes.
Yeah. I'm also just wondering, like, how, like, if people have large families or have to care for children and work full time.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this is, yeah. But I'm also kind of curious to ask you about, like, being. I mean, obviously you are an English speaker, so it's maybe not as much, but there's a lot of like the discussion that goes on in Iceland, just in Icelandic, so which people who do not speak Icelandic are excluded from, like political discussion and so on and forth, so forth. I just want to ask, like, how do you feel you are informed, for example?
That's something I've been thinking about a lot lately, actually. Because I'm very interested in politics anyway. So it has been interesting. It has been difficult for me to access information without having to put everything through Google Translate all the time, which is not always accurate. So there are some very interesting stories. I'm like, what is that translation? What is that about? I do appreciate that the city of Reykjavík does issue, like, it has a page, right, in English, which I appreciate. Something that has irritated me to no end is the COVID information. I have constantly have to translate, so it takes days sometimes for the information to be available in English, or let alone Polish or other languages. So, I'm used to now having to translate it. Sometimes I translate it word for word, which seems like, in the middle of a global pandemic, it would seem that that information should be as accessible as possible. So that is very scary, dangerous, right? That information is only available in Icelandic.
Yeah,
consistently
absolutely.
only available in Icelandic. I know I'm a member of a number of Facebook groups for foreigners here. So the community will always spread information, right, themselves, and they'll always find a way to get that information out. But I think that it should be coming from the government as well.
Yeah, definitely. Because that's what I mean. The COVID information site is said to be in many languages, but when you check it, the like updated information is just in Icelandic, and the only thing that is just in other languages is just the basic, like the instructions for washing your hands and all that.
Yeah.
But not the updated information. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, so I had been here, I think, like a week, and the phase 2 had kind of just began to start. So it was really important that we knew what that information was, right? And what the new measures would be. And I remember going to the COVID site and finding information that was days old on the English page, when, there was some sense of urgency about us changing our behavior, right, to prevent the spread of COVID, and to know what those rules are. But then that wasn't there. It took a few days. I remember going back to check, and eventually just having to rely on Icelandic people to give me that information, which not everybody has that access to, right? So I've noticed that it's like a different tiers of information here that gets out to different people. The top level is the Icelandic, the pure, information, the immediate information, the right now, and then other languages it's filtered, right? It's old information. They almost have to be sort of grateful they're getting anything in their language. Like, that's something that has surprised me, actually, about living here. I would have thought that it would have been a lot more accessible.
Yeah, good, because I know that especially because a lot of our foreign workers are working in the healthcare sector and food production. So you would expect this to be more inclusive with the updated information. So this is quite shocking.
I think a lot of people do rely on the grapevine to get information, right? But that's not always immediate. I mean, I'm very grateful for what they do, but it's a lot of digging to get the right information. People having to do the work for that information.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Reykjavík Grapevine is excellent, but they are like a different kind of media. So
yeah. Exactly. Yeah, they shouldn't have to do that.
No, it's not their duty to. So
no, I think as well, it's not quite the same. But if you look at the reporting around COVID, it has been borderline xenophobic a couple of times. This notion of keeping people out of the country, right, to prevent or to help stop COVID. I've struggled with trying to figure out what I think about that myself, because I want, COVID to go away, right? I don't, and I understand the financial impacts that it's having here, but I'm also kind of troubled by this notion that people are bringing it in from abroad, right? Because that creates this idea that foreigners are inherently dirty or, infectious. And I know it's a very fine line, but I've been shocked at some of my friends that are very nice people who are like, let's close the borders because we can't trust people from another country, And that's a slippery slope, I think. Without a bigger conversation about what that means, I think that Iceland is kind of on the edge a little bit. I don't know. Does that make sense, what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I think I get you.
Right.
It's the struggle that Icelandic people also have, because we were, homogeneous for a really long time. So, and our language also is kind of special to us in a way, because it's only spoken in Iceland. And also because our struggle for independence was very much rallied on, we have our own language and so on and so forth. So it's very close to people's hearts.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also like being accepting and tolerant at the same time is kind of a struggle for many, I suppose. But definitely, I mean, how I feel. I mean, obviously, I'm a native Icelandic speaker, so I'm speaking from a point of privilege. But I mean, for me, the main problem is the accessibility to actually learning Icelandic. And also what you and Andie were both talking about before, about the kind of reluctance of Icelanders to, actually speak Icelandic to people who may not speak it as fluently as you do, and have the patience to, listen and have an exchange in Icelandic, because this is the part of the learning process also. But this is something that we definitely need to work on as native Icelandic speakers. So yeah.
And I don't want to come across as sounding negative, because obviously I already love this country a lot. So it is very interesting, though, to see things, right, as an outsider, someone who's new to the culture here, and I can maybe see things that I didn't expect. I guess there is a difference, right? If you visit somewhere as a tourist, even though I would visit Iceland 3 or 4 times a year. So, I'm not brand new here, but to actually move somewhere and to have the goal of becoming part of society, right? And it's completely different. I don't feel like it's not possible to do. But I guess the hill that I feel like I'm climbing with regards to Icelandic is steeper than I thought. But I'm not going to give up. Don't worry.
Yeah, no,
Oh.
definitely. And I think also there is another faction to that as well. I mean, because I have made friends that are immigrants, and maybe when you get to know that, you get to know them before they learn Icelandic, and then they learn Icelandic, and then the relationship is kind of built on you two exchanging in English. So it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to switch, you know.
Mhm. Oh,
So,
I can see that. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
because it's funny how language plays into just the dialect you have, and the no, I mean the dialogue you have between you,
Mhm.
and the relationship. So that is another another aspect. But I think
Absolutely. Yeah,
yeah,
I agree.
but I think definitely accessibility is key. It needs to
Mhm.
be possible for people to learn and to have that space. So
Yeah, I don't know if Daniel remembers this, but a few weeks ago, I asked my friends, mostly it was directed towards people in the United States, if they would correct someone. So let's say someone was, they were having a conversation in English and someone had made some mistakes. Would the average American correct someone's sentence, right? Most of my friends, I'm very fortunate, most of them are pretty left wing. I don't have any horrible Trump voting uncle anywhere there. So like, I was like, let me see if there is a difference in culture. And most of my American friends said that they would not, if someone who was learning English made a mistake, they wouldn't correct them necessarily. They would consider, like they would think, can I understand what that person is saying? Yes, then it's okay. They're learning another language. And when I wrote that, a few of my Icelandic friends commented, and they also said that they would correct people's English, which made me laugh because not only would they correct people's Icelandic, they would also correct people's English. So I don't know that, I mean, and I love them. They're very nice people, but I was like, that's probably a cultural thing as well.
uh, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a sensitive issue because you don't actually know. Yeah, because I mean, Icelandic is not the easiest language on the planet.
No.
Uh, it's quite complex, and the grammar is a bit
Yes.
difficult, as you probably come to know.
But it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, but so there is also a thing of like not all Icelandic people speak it correctly as to speak. So it's so there is also some form of like language purity that
Yeah.
struggle
I,
in
I
just between Icelandic people also. So
yeah, it's like I don't know if that is the difference between like there is like an elitism, right? And
yeah.
I say that, and I don't think that makes people necessarily a bad person, but I have noticed that there is that um purity, like you said, that or that rush to tell someone that it's not 100%. And of course that does happen in the US, and it does happen in England, and it happens, I think, in every single country. But I think it's very interesting to experience that in Iceland, because like I said, when you're trying to learn a new language and people will tell you that it's wrong. Like I remember I learned a lot of vocabulary, just random words, and I felt very good about my Icelandic. And then I tried to say a sentence, and Daniel told me that I said the wrong version of the word green, I think it was, because I had put the masculine with a feminine, and it was not, I hadn't included the article in the set, whatever, like, so I look forward to the day that my brain doesn't have to think like right now, every single word that I say, I have to check off the list, right? Is it an article? Is it masculine, feminine? Like, I look forward to the day when it no longer takes me 10 minutes to say one sentence.
Yeah, because Icelandic is an extremely gendered language as well.
Yes.
So yeah, and this is a struggle also, especially for the queer community.
Right. Yeah, that was my instructor, my professor in Ísafjörður. He had heard of Haun, but he'd just been teaching in China, so he was like, nobody ever asked me to use any language which would imply that there was a non-binary option for a person. So he said, I've read about it, but I haven't used it, and of course language evolves constantly anyway. But he Googled it. He came back the next day to class and he said, I read the information online about it from Samtök in 78. He's like, and I think the university has to update its forms to include a non-binary option. So it was a good thing for the class. And he was very happy about it. But he said when he left Iceland 6-7 years ago, it wasn't part of a conversation. Yeah,
absolutely. That's quite recently that has been a part of the conversation. So and we're even seeing because also in Iceland, because like I said, it's quite gendered. That often when you're referring to a group that has different genders, you use the masculine. So this has recently been like, now like most people are trying to be more inclusive and use like a more inclusive term for this, and not everybody's happy about that.
Right.
So it's but it's an ongoing thing. And but we're hoping to see changes, and also just to be more linguistically inclusive, because it's
I was also encouraged. Did you see the I read an article, or at least I translated it, about the efforts to have accents be recorded for like for programs like that use your voice, and that when they have Icelandic, they want to also include the accents and the voices of the immigrants, which I thought was very good. I don't know if you saw those articles last week. I think the wife of the president she's Canadian, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes. And she recorded something in Icelandic, asking foreigners to record also, to help make Icelandic accessible, etc. So I think that's a good initiative.
Yeah, definitely. And this is why representation is important, that, people in power are of different backgrounds. So
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So
all right.
Yeah. But anyway, we're going to have to close this now.
Yes.
But it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Nicola. Daniel, unfortunately, is dropping in and out. He's struggling with his internet connection.